Hello, everyone, and good morning from New York City. Thanks for staying tuned to the Banking Revolution Conference. My name is Imani Moise, U.S. Banking Correspondent for the Financial Times, and it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Ali Niknam, founder and CEO of digital challenger bank Bunk, joining us from Amsterdam. Welcome, Ali.
Thank you, Imani. Great to be here. I miss New York. I wish I could be there with you.
It's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day, I have to say, not to make you jealous. So I guess just to start, what role do you see digital banks like Bunk playing in the future of banking?
Well, I think if you look at the history of Bank, you'll see that we put a number of things on the agenda. One of the things was innovation, and innovation very specifically to become more user-centric, in the sense that putting our users first, building products they love to use, creating all kinds of new solutions that make life easy. I think Bank is renowned for that, and I hope that digital banks like Bank will fulfill the same role in the future.
Yeah, I think neobanks have definitely been at the forefront of product and innovation in the industry. And one of the things that I've noticed covering banking for the past few years is that a lot of those products are now being copied by the incumbents. So I guess I was wondering how much product innovation do you think is still to be done, and how do you keep from getting stale?
That's a great question. Well, I think maybe to answer this question and partly the previous question as well, obviously consumers and business owners benefit from the direct accessibility of these future features at neobanks. Uh, but what we also see that you so clearly mentioned is that incumbents, because of our presence, are forced to innovate where they otherwise wouldn't. For example, in the Netherlands, our home market, we can see that in the years before Bank, many of the incumbents, such as ABN AMRO, ING, etc., didn't innovate any of their products at all. There weren't any new features launched, anything exciting. And just due to our sheer presence, they are now forced to innovate. So I think that's of huge benefit to consumers. And I think that's something that we should embrace and would want to keep going forward. Now, as for catching up and copying features, banks have been copying machines for a long time now. Uh, Procedurally, they're excellent companies, but innovatively and creatively, not so much. I think copying will be here to stay, and I think it's for consumers to choose whether they want to have these features in an original form and as the first person to have them, or rather they're more comfortable waiting a couple of years until they reach them. A very simple example is ever since the launch of Bank, now 6 years ago, we one of the many new features we introduced was for people to get a push notification when they got a payment. Very simple feature, but very much appreciated and very much wanted. And up until this day, I think there's only one of the three main banks of the Netherlands that has been able to copy this feature. So yes, you're right that banks attempt to copy features, but in practice, this sometimes might take a very long time.
Hmm. Hmm. But I mean, given that it seems to be the direction of travel, this copying that you were talking about, and with kind of the migration, the financial industry increasingly moving to the cloud, processes are getting faster. How are you thinking about differentiation in the space going forward?
I think so. I think first of all, if you look at the state of the world today, although some features are being copied, a lot aren't. Secondly, I think the core of Bank is more than the sum of its features. We stand for something. We have a DNA that we want to make the world a better place. We score excellent all on all sustainability metrics. A couple of months ago, we were in the fortunate position that we could help a large number of people, large number of refugees as a result of this horrible war in Ukraine. So these are all things that I'm very proud of and that are hard to copy. You can copy the features, albeit very slowly, but you can't copy uh, the culture and the DNA that produces those features. So that's the second thing. And the third thing, is that I think that we will continue to innovate at a very rapid pace. And although banks have been able to copy one or two features, in that same period of time, we have been able to create so many new things that make life easy for our users that the gap has increased rather than decreased compared to 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Um, and from the U.S. perspective, I guess one advantage that the incumbents still have is trust. So I guess as a neobank and as a challenger, how do you go about establishing trust in consumer and client's mind?
That is a great question because I think this is the dilemma for a end consumer. Do I go for the shiny new stuff with all exciting features and all the things that make my life easy, or do I pick for the safe route and stay with my existing solution, whatever it might be? I think one of the things that we did at Bunk is we immediately before we launched anything applied for a full banking permit. So the day that we launched, we were regulated just as any other bank. We didn't take any shortcuts. We didn't do any, funky stuff. We were a regulated bank with all the benefits of the equivalent of FDIC insurance in Europe. User deposits were protected. Our security is top notch, et cetera, et cetera. However, be that as it may, it does take some time for people to trust a new player, so to speak. And I think that just because we have been around for some time, this trust has grown because we have continuously proven to do the right thing, so to speak. And I believe that today, trust is not so much an issue anymore, at least for Bank. But you are right that if tomorrow another neobank would start, they wouldn't necessarily get to trust right off the bat.
Okay. And you touched on this a little bit earlier, but I was wondering how you go about how you go about integrating financial inclusion into the business model in a sustainable way.
Right. Well, I think so. That you keep asking really good questions. That's fantastic.
It's my
Thank you
job.
for that. Yeah. So one of the things that Bunk did differently right from the start was that our main source of income was service fees rather than net interest income. Now, this is fundamental because this means that it is in our best interest, it is in our business interest to keep our users happy, to service them in such a way that benefits them so that they see the value of our product and in turn are happy to pay us a couple of euros a month for that service fee. Now, this is very contrary to incumbent banks where the large majority of the income is net interest income, aka banks try to upsell you. They try to upsell you with loans. They try to get you to get into that overdraft, get credit card charges, get credit card loans. Obviously, that is the biggest source of income. I mean, realistically, I believe credit card loans in the US, but correct me if I'm wrong, are near 20% today. Well, it's not hard to make a lot of money if you charge someone 20%, which I think is borderline criminal. But I mean, the interest rates are what they are because of the system the way it is. But I mean, realistically, I don't think it is financially healthy to have loans at 20%. So the business model of Bank is made in such a way that we encourage our users to have a healthy financial lifestyle. And in turn, we have introduced a great number of features that helps them achieve this. One of which, for example, is that you cannot go into the red at Bank. You cannot have any overdraft. If you want to do so, you have to apply and get a service and consciously apply for a loan. The other way is with the notifications. We always keep you in the loop on what the status of your balances are, which might seem a simple thing, and it is a simple thing, but it is very effective. And then thirdly, we have a number of sub-accounts that help our users budget very easily so that they don't overspend on the things they shouldn't overspend. So you can have like a sub account for fun money, you can have a sub account for groceries, you can have a sub account for, I don't know, drinks and weekend and fun time. And you'll, as long as you commit to it and stick to it and don't cheat yourself, you'll be fine.
Okay. Well, I guess going back to the topic of product innovation and keeping your customers happy, I'm reminded of a conversation I had with one of my editors a few years back when I was talking about how popular buy now pay later was, and my editor said, "Well, yeah, free money is always popular, right?" So like, and when you have these, I mean, sometimes consumers they want things like free money, which is not always good business. So how do you kind of toe that line in making sure that the products that you're putting into the market are sustainable?
Well, there I have to say, I think, um, buy now, pay later is a new form of credit. And as most people know, all new forms of credit, they need to be battle tested. They need to go through a credit cycle, which we're about to experience. And only after they survive, they can truly be considered, sustainable and safe. And that is exactly the reason why we have been very cautious in deploying new credit, because everybody wants credit. Handing out credit is very easy. It's like handing out candy. Everybody wants to have it. But getting paid back is what is actually difficult. And when it comes to buy now, pay later, when you hand out credit for all kinds of small intangible assets, when the economy turns into what it is becoming, we need to wait and see how much of that money will be paid back. And I think what helps is that Bunk is now my third big company. I have two other unicorns on my name, totally three. So throughout the years and all of these gray hairs, I've learned to be patient and not to get carried away with the latest hype or fashionable things. So I think at Bunk we have been steadily running our own game, our own track. We've always been focused on our users, on providing value for our users, because I believe that in the long run, that is what will turn out to be the biggest success we can achieve.
Okay, let's pivot a little bit to talk again about financial inclusion. But can you talk a little bit how Bunk is engaging consumers who predominantly rely on cash?
Yes, I think the situation is a little bit different in Europe compared to US. Europe is far more digital. To the best of my knowledge, we don't have any legally valid uses of people predominantly using cash. Um, Now, I love, as we said at the very early beginning, I love New York. I'm in New York quite a bit. The situation in the US is quite different from Europe. Almost everybody has a bank account here. Um, so I think financial inclusion is a little bit different here compared to the US. I think it's more about financial health rather than access to the banking system.
That makes sense. So, I mean, I guess, do you see if we keep moving in this direction, do you think we become cashless on a global scale, or will it always exist to a certain extent?
I think we will become cashless. We will become fully digital. I mean, if we go back to the history of money, it all started with, tangible products like salt. I think coffee beans were money at a certain point. Obviously, everybody knows about gold coins. That moved into paper, and that has moved into bits and bytes. So throughout the centuries, we have gone from tangible assets that contained intrinsic value because they were useful by themselves to more and more abstract things. And I think that is very likely to continue. Now, we are already seeing the first notions of that with cryptocurrencies. Now, I'm not saying I'm pro or against cryptocurrencies. I don't want to have a philosophical debate. I don't want to have a religious debate on it. But on an abstract level, cryptocurrency is one layer more abstract than banking is. And so you can already see things becoming more and more abstract, because that makes life easier for people in the end. Imagine you having to carry around all your belongings or all your um, treasure in a big case with gold coins. That's just not very handy. You want to go to the store, you want to pay without any issues. That's why we invented digital money, and I believe that that process will continue to happen.
Interesting. So, I guess what is your vision for the future of bank or neo? Like, are these neobanks the mega banks of the future with all these different business lines, or do you think retail banking stays kind of segmented and more niche and more focused?
I think if regulators allow neobanks to grow into their full potential, which means that they will be different to existing banks. And regulators, they like proven things, they like things they recognize, but innovation and things you recognize are contradiction, right? So if the regulators allow us the space, I believe neobanks can become the new everyday retail banks, um, that will provide better services, that will help users make life easy, make financial decisions in a more informed, in a more simple, in a more effective way, at lower total cost for consumers at large. And I believe current banks will move into more and more specialized products, as you can see today already, like complex lending structures to big corporates and stuff like that. But I think everyday lending for SMEs and consumers is very likely to go to neobanks sooner or later.
Interesting. And I guess just kind of looking forward, since you do have a large customer base, I was just wondering what you're seeing in terms of any potential economic pointers into how what the consumer mood is.
Well, I'm very optimistic and pessimistic at the same time, because I believe that we are heading to a big economic downturn. At the same time, I believe economic downturns are very important because they let the air out of the system and they redeploy people and energy and focus to companies that are supposed to be there, rather than companies that are just there and are sticking around. So I think we will go through a rough patch a little bit for a little while. This will free up talent. This will free up energy. That energy will be deployed in things we actually need, things like helping us through this climate crisis, helping us through all kinds of supply chain problems, all kinds of other things, and then the world will be a better place. And this is, again, a cycle that we have seen for many centuries, right? Things go really well, really well, really well. They go a little bit too well. I think we all feel like during Corona, so many people were at home, work couldn't be done, yet we kept getting this money magically, which obviously isn't a good thing. And so now it's time to tighten the belt a little bit, um, and hopefully get out for the better.
Okay. I think that is counterintuitive. It's counterintuitive, but a very uplifting note to end on. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.